All right, so how do you really calculate retirement age, right? Do you figure out what age you want first, or do you figure out what you're saving right now and that tells you what your age is? The sad, unfortunate thing is that people might set a goal, but the retirement age ends up being later. Let's talk about that and how you can prevent it so you can actually choose your life on your own terms, letting a calculator telling you what to do. All right, so how do we calculate this retirement age? I think this is kind of a weird question anyways, because let's be honest, if you ask anybody, and I know I've talked to thousands of people, but if you ask anybody, what do you want your retirement age to be? Almost every time people will say, well, as soon as I can get it. And some people will even say, and this is the other thing too, like if you're like more of the younger generation like we are, right? Like the baby boomers is a different story than like millennials, for example. Because for baby boomers, they're like, I just want to get done. I hate my job. But for millennials, they're like, I just want to become work optional. I want to be able to work because I want to, not because I have to, because I can't see myself quitting completely, right? And I know that's true for everybody. And my generation, the Xers, we're in the between. Nobody cares that gives a crap about us anyways. So, everybody has their own different thing. And so you might say, well, I don't necessarily want to retire, but can I have the option to do it? Can I have enough income coming in from my retirement funds or whatever it might be so that I could retire sooner? Well, that's the key right here. And there's a few little aspects you got to be aware of. So let's get into this. How do you calculate the age? If you want to have a certain age you want to retire by, you can go use calculators like retirement calculators. You just Google it. They're all over the place, right? You can do that and it's pretty easy to do. I will say this though. The real problem is, how do you know what numbers to put in? Because I'll tell you, like when I used to be a financial advisor back in the day, I was the traditional salesman in a suit selling you financial crap like that. I did that 20 years ago. And I would always pull out my little calculators. I even had a nice fancy calculator to show people stuff. Like little, I can't remember what the calculators are called because I stopped calculus in high school. The little scientific calculators, right? There we go. That's what it was. I was using scientific calculators. Now you can just use tools online or whatever else. But I would pull out this calculator and say, look, if you just save this many dollars for the next 40 years at this % interest, you will have millions of dollars at this point, right? Like I would show them that kind of stuff. I'm like, so you just got to start saving right now. And if you wait a year, you just lost it. You're going to have to save another $50 a month or whatever it is, right? Like every year you wait, you got to save double. I can't remember like what I said, but it was something stupid like that, okay? Maybe you've heard this stupid stuff too. Like every 5 years you wait, you got to save double that amount, right? Well, that's the problem, is that they're trying to put in these numbers, but what are the numbers they're actually putting in? So my problem as a financial advisor, I used to put in 12% returns. Why? Because they would give me these nice little charts as financial advisors. They say, here's a chart of the stock market since 2000 BC, since before man made fire, and stuff like that. If you put your money in the stock market, $1, you'd have $5 billion today, and all that kind of stuff. So I would tell them, hey, look, the average over time is 12%. Now I can't guarantee that. I can't promise anything because it's illegal for me to do so. But look what the past has done, but it doesn't mean the future will be that way. But that's what the past has done, so you can kind of count on it, right? So I'd show them that stuff. So I put in 12%. But here's the problem, guys. As I became a financial advisor, became more experienced, I started doing my own research. Now I started looking at the S&P 500. I said, well, what's the real return of the S&P 500? Most of the time, like that 30-year return or whatever, is like between 7 and 8%. I'll tell you right now, this is like the highest I've seen it in like 20 years or so. Right now, the average for the last 30 years is like been 8.74%. This is up through February of 2025, right? So if you're looking at this in March, you're like, oh, it's actually 8.76. Like, come on, give me a break. Okay, it's 8.74 as of yesterday when I did this before I recorded this video, okay? But that being said, 8.74%. Now, there'll be somebody arguing and say, well, you reinvest dividends. Yeah, okay, well, that might have pushed it closer to 10%. But understand, this is the best I've seen it as the actual yield of the S&P 500. Know also that if you have mutual funds that are not just the S&P 500, that index, guess what? 85% of fund managers, or the funds out there, last year in 2024, 85% didn't even match the returns of the stock market. And that's very typical, is that most of those funds never even get the market returns. So even if you're thinking, well, I should have made 10%, well, that's only if you put your money in the S&P. You probably made less if you're in other funds. Now, if you had your money in the S&P, that 10% is really high. That's the highest I've seen in 20 years. Because the last 16 years, the market's gone nowhere but up except for one little blip in 2022. It's been straight up. Understand that I have not ever seen something like this in history. If you go back to the stock market, you won't see that kind of run like we've had for a 15, 16-year period. It's unheard of. So to see it like that, you're like, oh, it's actually 10%. Well, put in 10% instead of 12%, you'll realize your retirement date just got pushed out several years. What if you could actually get more like 8%, which is probably more conservative, more likely if you put your money in the stock market? It's even worse. I get ticked off. You get like Dave Ramsey tweets and stuff. And that's the thing. Whatever ends up on Twitter stays on Twitter and ends up in my feed, right? So he puts stuff on Twitter all the time, or Instagram. He'll say, if you save $100 a month for 40 years at 12% interest, you should have $1.176 million. No one should retire broke. Everyone should be a millionaire, is what he'll say on those posts. Here's the problem, Dave. First off, you put in $100 a month in a real calculator at 12% for 40 years, you actually get $979,000. You're off by 200 grand. So you can't even do math right, buddy. Secondly, the other problem is this, is that if you end up earning only 8%, that number is no longer freaking like $1 million plus. It's now down below $400,000. Now you're in the $300,000 range. So imagine if you were expecting to have 1.176 million because Dave told you so, and then 40 years you're like, I've got like 380 grand. Well, that sucks. Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. That's the biggest issue right now, right? The biggest issue is that people are actually not getting those kind of returns, and that's why when they get to retirement, like my dad did at 61, scrimped and saved, paid off all his debt, and it still wasn't enough. At least not enough according to what the numbers ran out as a financial advisor, but he did everything right. He saved exactly like we all taught him to, but it wasn't enough, and he had to work into his 70s. His retirement age got 10 years later because of that very reason. And by the way, he only ended up retiring because he was forced to due to health reasons. Don't get caught in that place. So just understand, if you're trying to put in market returns, I would put in 8%. Do that. Then start to figure out what you have to put in per year. And then I would put in inflation. That's the other problem too. Inflation, because I would get depressed as a financial advisor putting in 3% inflation rate. I'd put in 2 to make people feel better. I would actually put in 4 or 5% if you're going to try to be more realistic. So imagine this, if you're putting in 8% return of the market or of your investments, say even 4% on the inflation rate, and then you got to realize you only live on 3%. If you're trying to retire in your 60s, let's say for example, you should only be pulling out 3% a year of your money. If you retire in your 70s, you can pull out 4%. Just so you know that the 4% rule is debunked a long time ago. Everybody's debunked it. Even Dave Ramsey's co-host debunked it. And Dave Ramsey thinks you can pull out 8%, which means you'll run out of money in about 15 or 20 years. You better die quick. Live on ramen noodles, die fast. That's how you retire, okay? I don't think you should be doing that kind of crap, but some people do. I know there's gonna be somebody comment like, that's mean, Chris. You just said you live on ramen noodles. Like, I don't live on ramen noodles. I eat macaroni and cheese. Good for you. I'm so happy, big boy. You're awesome. Go spam on somebody else's freaking page. So anyways, so this is the problem. Like, you've got all this stuff happening, and then you got to push out retirement. 3% if you want to retire in your 60s. If you're trying to do this whole financial independent retire early thing, FIRE movement, it's 2%. Sorry. I know. FIRE group actually kicked me off their Facebook group because of it, even though I'm actually one that did it and they didn't. But that's beside the point. I ain't bitter. Although I sound bitter. Okay. Anybody who says they ain't bitter probably are bitter, aren't they? So anyways, regardless, here's the problem, guys, is that you can't use that. You got to be using 2%. So if you're trying to get these numbers up to that point and you see this after inflation number, then you got to say, if I'm trying to retire early, 2%. Or if I'm trying to retire later, 3%. And it's going to be depressing. There is a way around it. There is a way to do it. By the way, if you're trying to retire before the age of 60, you shouldn't be putting money in 401ks and IRAs. I'm going to make that a different video for you guys. But if you're subscribed to this channel, you've probably already seen it. But if you haven't, you should subscribe right now. But that's another issue. If you're trying to retire before 60, don't put your money in places like 401ks and IRAs where they make you wait till you're after 59 and a half, 60 years old, and then you get charged with 10% penalty if you try to pull out early. Don't do that. You got to have the right vehicle too. The way to do it faster though, is we actually have our own retirement calculator, but it's a little bit different. It doesn't show you what age to retire at, but it does show you, like, if you want to create passive income now, not wait 30 or 40 years, we want to do it now, go to moneyripples.com. There's actually a passive income calculator you can try out, and it'll show you how much passive income you create in the next 12 months. The cool thing is, let's just say the number's only like 10,000 bucks. Still, that's 10,000 bucks. If you reinvest that money, that can even bump it up that little bit more the next year and the next year. It could be like 11,000. You can kind of compound that income over time. Some of you guys, you might get 6 figures. You might get over 100 grand, and you're shocked you can even do it. Some of you that have been saving longer and you're older, you could do that. So I would just say, try that out. You can try the traditional passive retirement calculators online, but just make sure you put in the right numbers. Put in that 8% for the stock market, maybe 9 if you really want to be a little bit edgy. Then put like 4 or 5% on the inflation rate, and then make sure you only pull out 3% of the after inflation numbers. That's how you calculate that retirement age based on what you're saving right now. But if you want to do it faster and sooner like I did and so many other of our clients have, Go to moneyripples.com, try our passive income calculator to see how much you can create in just the next year. Try that out now.